Hello and welcome to the Iron Maiden. My name is Abby, and today I'm back from Melbourne. I'm back in New South Wales and here with my Nats 2025 retrospective for Vincent. First, some shoutouts. Melbourne itself was a beautiful city. There was a lot of good food and amazing coffee. If you get the chance, I really do recommend going to Melbourne, no matter where you live. I think it was really good. Aussie Nats was a great event. It wasn't that big. It was kind of friendly atmosphere. I had lots of cool opponents. No one was particularly bitter or rude. I might have complained about our game, but if I did, I still had a good time. So just know that I don't mean any harm. And my friends, thank you Tom, Anthony, and Lyra for chatting in between rounds and rooting for each other during the tournament. That was really fun. So the meta for Aussie Nats looked pretty normal for the rest of the Nats at the moment. Lots of Gravies, Syndras, a few Verdant, and a lot of Assassins. Prism also got up there in these last few Nats this week. So I think Vincent was really an excellent meta choice. As you can see, I've put the arrows. Syndra is a good matchup. Prism's a good matchup. Both Assassins are pretty good matchups. Of course, Verdant is a very bad matchup. And Gravy is a bit tough, but I still think this means that our positive matchups vastly outweigh the negative ones. Unfortunately for me, and for Anthony on Vincent as well, Gem had other plans. I personally faced Victor and then Victor again, which is an extremely low chance. The first round would have been about a 3% chance, and then it gets even lower from there. Whereas Anthony also faced Verdant into Verdance. So Vincent's all around today were just not in Gem's favor, and we can blame that for the low performance of Vincent if we'd like, but we'll have to beat those matchups at some point anyway. Here's the deck list I put in. It's almost exactly the same as the Nats video I made a few weeks ago. I did change out Reaping Blade for a third Morvrian Skies because I felt that Reaping Blade was not useful in the Verdance matchup, and that's really all it was there for. And I changed Deathly Whale Blue to Widespread Annihilation. I mostly did this because I had a Widespread Annihilation, a third copy, and I didn't have a third copy of Deathly Whale Blue, but I still think it was probably a good choice anyway, because Annihilation is obviously very good against aggro decks, and Deathly Whale Blue is kind of mediocre into everything. I did like these changes, although it never really mattered. I didn't get a good chance to use Morvrian Skies because I didn't face a Gravy, and Annihilation over Deathly Whale barely matters in most matchups, so I didn't really notice that difference. So my CC rounds, I faced Victor round 1 and lost. It was a very, very close game with my opponent winning on 2 life. I didn't get to see Oblivion that game. I did get to play Chains of Mephetis turn 1, and it was okay. But because my opponent wasn't on Crown of Dominion, they weren't going to draw cards nearly as early in the game. So it wasn't really perfect for that matchup. And then my second round Victor, I was winning that game halfway through, and my opponent drew some really good hands and turned the tides on me. I also didn't see Oblivion in this round. I got a turn 1 Chains again in this game, and it was pretty good, but the second one was really good. Playing a Chains later in the game really took a few turns of pressure down a little bit, although it was not nearly enough for this matchup. Azalea, I did win that third game. It wasn't particularly close, unfortunately, for the Azalea. I drew Disruption every single turn, or maybe almost every single turn. And Chains was really good as well. It helps to set up to kill your opponent when you need just a little bit extra time to get enough run chance to feel comfortable. Then we did draft. I drafted an incredible Marlin deck by my own standards. I wheeled lots of Ranger cards. I felt like I was the only Marlin in the pod, but apparently there was 2 more. Although I think the third Marlin was mostly just playing pirate cards. I think this deck should be a 3-0 deck. I think someone who is good at high seas gameplay would definitely take this to 3-0s generally. I'm not very good at high seas gameplay, and I don't know why. I'm glad that Nats is over because I don't have to think about this draft format anymore. So I started with a win against a Marlin mirror. I did go second, and I drew some insanely good hands that attacked for about 11 on any given turn. And then I ended the game with a 16 damage turn, including 6 overpower. So opponent didn't really have a good chance that game. Then I faced into a gravy. They went first and attacked for 7. Sure, I think that's kind of a mistake. I don't know. I draw up and have no arrows in hand, which is roughly a 2% chance. That's really bad. The deck had 18 arrows, so extremely unlucky. And because of that, I just pass and I'm behind all game. They got the first turn and the second turn before I did anything. So I lost that one. And then I played into Puffin. This was actually Anthony, who also plays Vincent. The game ended in fatigue. He had a few more cards than I, and he smartly didn't let me get a gold in the second half of the game, which means I couldn't set up overpower from a harpoon. So that was really well played, and he beat me in that one. Then I dropped, and in the Sunday event, I did the Super Armory, which was a lot of fun. So against an Acilio in round 1, I won that game. This guy was probably an Acilio expert, or definitely super fan. Played 60 reacts and Sigil of Solace, which made it a quite slow Acilio game. Neither of the decks really worked. He had lots of awkward turns where I disrupted him. I couldn't find my generation for rune chance in the mid game, so I had several turns where I did very little, or pitched and attacked. But he did a mediocre Gone in a Flash turn, and because of that, there was no AB, and slowly I won the game over the course of a few turns. Then I had a Syndra opponent. The opponent was really cool. We had a pretty normal Syndra game. They weren't, they weren't expecting to win, and they weren't sour about that. They didn't bring AB because it's not worth it, and I just kind of pulled their hands apart. Then I played into a Fang. This was a really good game. I started really strong. They started with 2 fealty on turn 1 from double the instant that makes a fealty and does nothing else. But I managed to keep them off fealty for 4 or 5 turns, which I think was, very impressed by, and got through quite a lot of damage. After they got their 3rd fealty, they drew some truly insane hands and obliterated me with more than 20, sometimes upwards of 30 for 3 or 4 turns in a row, while I failed to draw attack actions as well. So this was a very unfortunate game for me, but it was still pretty fun. And then in round 4, I've matched into a Prism. This was a very fun game for me. I high rolled extremely hard. I had many turns where I did upwards of 30 damage, including one turn where I had all 5 Malefics. My opponent was nice about it, a good sport, and played really well. I could have definitely done a lot more in that already high-rolling game if they hadn't disrupted me in the way that Prism can. And then here's some takeaways for the event. Chains I found was good into several matchups. It's a really good 1 to 2 of. I would not play all 3. I don't think it's that good. I don't think you ever want to have 3 in one game. I think if you draw 2 over the course of a game, that's perfect. Into Victor, it was a great way to take a setup turn and kind of insulate myself from some of their card draw. And it was also really good because you can do that for a setup turn, and then during your next turn, if you're attacking them, their block cards don't work properly. They banish the top card, they probably can't play it unless they banish a D-React, which means that it kind of just turns off the card draw part of Victor for that turn. And then into Azalea, it's a really good piece because Azalea likes to draw a card every single turn. It sets up the end game, like I said before. It lets you take a turn off even into a really powerful deck like Azalea, and probably not die. Beseech the Demagon was mediocre as always. It could probably be something else when I'm looking at this deck list now. It's really useful in Hedgeboard, such as into Dorinthia and other warriors. It's also really good into Prism, being a Shadow non-attack. But it's not useful enough into Fatigue, and as you can see, the games that I lost in my Nats were 2 victors, which were very hard to get through. I think that Beseech could possibly be swapped for Mordred Tide, Sonata Galaxia, or maybe like a Time Snap Potion. I don't know which of those is best, but I'm looking into those options. Vexing Quill Hand. In both of the Victor games, I'm pretty sure, I lost with my Quill Hand still on board. Of course, you want to keep your Quill Hand as late as possible in any given game, but clearly, if you lose with it on the board, you are wasting 2 value. So I should have cracked it at some point just to get more damage through, to make my opponent maybe block a little bit differently. That's a really hard call to make, because once you've used it, you're now liable to dud draws a lot more. But at some point, I think it would have been correct to use it, because obviously not using it is very wasteful. The Binstance package and the book is so powerful. Sometimes I'm almost convinced to put Bloodied Oval back into this deck, which I think the card is good. Obviously it helps with things like the Syndra matchup or any other aggro matchups. But I believe if you play Moon and Cull, the Binstant package, then you really should be playing book into every matchup, even aggro matchups. Sometimes you need the Eloquence at the end of the game to get a 1 unpreventable damage through. Sometimes you need it to make an action point. Sometimes you want it just so you can Funeral Moon with Go Again and actually attack on a given turn. So I think Grimoire really is worth it. Even though you use it in maybe 5% of games, it's still really worth having, because you don't know which games you're going to need it in. It just comes up sometimes. And we've got busy times ahead. So we've got Mastery Pack Guardian coming out soon in the 8th of August, I think that is, and Super Slam coming out in late September. There's also a skirmish season through the end of August, through the second half of August. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm going to be doing my uni's internship. So I will be extremely busy for a few months, about 2 months. And during that time, I hope to put out at least 1 video a week, or exactly 1 video a week, but I just can't tell you how busy I will be. Because there's no big competitive CC events coming up, I'm probably going to look into making a Blitz Vinset video. Although I don't play a lot of Blitz, I probably will start doing a little bit for skirmish season. And I might also make a Chain LL deck list. I know that Chain's recently got a lot of bans, so I don't know how good he is, but I still really like Chain, and I am interested in LL. Unfortunately, my locals is Crack Shuffle Play, so I can't really make any videos about that, but I might look into getting an LL skirmish if I can afford the time. And that's the end of the retrospective for today. If you'd like to check out my comics, they're there on the left. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can. And most importantly, join the Discord. I found a few people at that event at Nats who liked the content but didn't join the Discord. And I told them, you just got to join the Discord. It's the best place to be. There's lots of good conversation, lots of very intelligent Vinset players. So I really highly recommend that. If you make it all the way to the end of the video, I think you've clearly liked something, and there's a lot more people in that Discord with a lot of good information. So consider joining, and also, be good.